The massive alien ship hung in the sky like a dark cloud over the United Nations headquarters in New York. Its smooth, metallic surface reflected the morning sun, casting strange shadows on the buildings below. Inside the UN's main conference room, Commander James Stone watched the alien delegates with careful eyes. Their tall, slender forms and shimmering suits made them look almost beautiful, but 20 years of military experience had taught him to see past appearances. The lead alien, who called himself General Cax, stood at the podium. His voice translator made his words sound flat and emotionless. "Your species has potential," he said, looking down at the gathered human leaders. "The Stellar Union offers you a chance to join us. Under our guidance, of course." Stone noticed how the alien's four-fingered hand rested casually on the podium, how his head tilted slightly. All signs of confidence, maybe too much confidence. Next to him, the UN Secretary General shifted uncomfortably in her seat. "And if we wish to remain independent?" she asked. General Cax's mouth parts twitched in what Stone guessed was amusement. "Look at your weapons, your tactics. You still fight on the ground like animals. Our ships can destroy cities from orbit. Your choice is simple: join us or face extinction." Stone couldn't help but smile. The aliens had made their first mistake. They were judging Earth's military by their standards alone. He thought about the underground bunkers in every major city, the tunnel networks, the years of preparing for every possible invasion scenario, even alien invasion. The meeting continued, with the aliens showing videos of their great space battles, their advanced weapons, and their victories over other races. They never once mentioned ground combat. Everything was about space warfare and orbital bombardment. Stone took careful notes, not of their technology, but of what they didn't show. After the meeting, Stone hurried to the Emergency Military Council. Generals and commanders from around the world joined through secure video links. The room was tense, but Stone saw determination, not fear, on their faces. "They think we're primitive," Stone said, standing before the digital maps of Earth's cities, "because we still train for ground combat." Did anyone else notice they never showed a single ground battle? The Russian general nodded on his screen. "They fight from space because they've forgotten how to fight on the ground. Their technology has made them soft." Stone pointed to the city maps. "Every major city on Earth has been preparing for war for centuries. We've fought in streets, in buildings, underground. We've mastered urban warfare while they've forgotten it exists." The Chinese general leaned forward in her video feed. "And their ships cannot use orbital strikes if their own troops are in our cities." The plan came together quickly. They would let the aliens land, draw them into the cities. Earth's forces would seem to fall back in panic, letting the aliens think their victory was easy. But every street would be a trap, every building a fortress, and below the ground, Earth's armies would wait. As Stone left the meeting, he looked up at the alien ships through his office window. They were beautiful and powerful, but he knew something they didn't. Humanity hadn't kept fighting on the ground because they were primitive. They'd done it because sometimes the old ways were still the best ways. The next day, Earth gave its answer to the Stellar Union. They would not surrender. They would not join. General Cax's face showed what Stone now knew was their version of a sneer. "Then you choose extinction," the alien said. "We will begin our invasion in 3 days." Stone watched the alien delegation leave, their steps confident and proud. They thought they were giving Earth time to reconsider, to realize their mistake. Instead, they were giving humanity exactly what it needed: time to prepare the battlefield. In his office, Stone looked at the old photos on his wall, urban warfare in different cities throughout history. Soon, he would add new photos to that wall. And for the first time, the aliens would learn why humans had never given up the art of ground combat. 3 days wasn't much time, but Earth's armies had been preparing for war for generations. In underground command centers across the world, soldiers moved with purpose. They knew what was coming. The alien ships grew in number each hour. filling the skies like steel stars. Commander Stone stood in New York's deepest bunker, 30 stories below the streets. Around him, screens showed similar bunkers in London, Moscow, Beijing, and 100 other cities. Each one was a maze of tunnels and hidden weapons. Each one was ready. "They're broadcasting their ultimatum again," said his aide, turning up the volume on the main screen. General Cax's face appeared, looking down at them with what they now recognized as pity. "Your time is up," the alien leader said. "Surrender now, and we will be merciful. Resist, and we will show you the true power of the Stellar Union." Stone watched as the first wave of alien ships entered the atmosphere. They were beautiful machines, smooth and deadly. Their landing crafts looked like giant metal eggs, touching down outside every major city on Earth, just as planned. The alien army that came out was everything Stone had expected. Tall walking machines that looked like metal spiders, hovering tanks that glided over the ground, and soldiers in powered armor that made them look more like robots than living beings. They formed perfect lines, their formations so neat they looked like toys on a playground. "Send the evacuation order," Stone commanded. All across the world, cities appeared to empty. Civilians had already moved to prepared shelters, but now the military made a show of running away. News cameras captured the retreat, broadcasting it everywhere. "Let them think we're scared," Stone thought. General Cax's forces moved into the cities with perfect precision. Their walking machines stepped between buildings, sensors scanning for enemies that weren't there. Their hovering tanks moved down main streets in formation. Everything was going exactly as they planned. In his command ship high above New York, General Cax watched the humans flee. "Such disorder," he said to his officers. "They run like prey animals." The reports were right. "They are primitive." His commanders laughed, sharing his confidence. But underground, Stone smiled as he watched the alien army advance. They didn't notice how the streets they chose were exactly the ones humans wanted them to take. They didn't see how their perfect formations were being stretched thin between buildings. They'd never looked down. "Check the readings," Stone ordered. The screen showed what he needed to know. The alien sensors were having trouble. Too much metal in the buildings, too much concrete and steel. Their advanced scanners, made for the clear vastness of space, were getting confused. Reports came in from other cities. The aliens had the same problem everywhere. They could only scan a few floors up and down, and even that was fuzzy. They didn't know about the tunnels. Didn't know that under their feet, Earth's armies were moving into position. "They're reaching the first target zones," his aide reported. Stone nodded. Phase 1 was complete. The aliens thought they were winning, thought Earth's armies were running away. Now came the hard part. "Send the signal," Stone ordered. "Operation Anthill begins in 3 hours. Let's show them why humans never stopped fighting on the ground." Around the world, the message spread through secure channels. In tunnels and bunkers, soldiers checked their weapons one last time. They had trained for this, prepared for this. The aliens thought humans were primitive for fighting in the dirt and dust of the ground. Soon they would learn that sometimes the ground itself was the greatest weapon of all. Stone looked at the timer counting down. In 3 hours, the aliens would learn what real ground combat was like. They would learn why humans had spent centuries perfecting the art of urban warfare. And most importantly, they would learn that their greatest mistake wasn't invading Earth. It was thinking that superior technology alone would guarantee victory. The first shots came from nowhere. One moment, the alien walking machines were moving smoothly through New York streets. The next, explosions erupted from manholes and sewer grates, sending waves of energy that scrambled their sensors. The perfect formations began to break. In his underground command center, Stone watched through hidden cameras as the aliens faced their first real challenge on Earth. Their walking machines stumbled, trying to locate enemies that seemed to appear and disappear like ghosts. "First wave of attack successful," reported his aide. "London, Moscow, and Beijing reports similar results. The aliens are confused. On the screens, Stone could see why. Human soldiers popped up from hidden doors in buildings, fired their weapons, and disappeared again before the aliens could respond. Years of urban combat experience showed in every move. Each attack was quick, precise, and perfectly timed. Above ground, General Cax was facing something he'd never seen before. His soldiers reported attacks from all directions, but their sensors couldn't lock onto any targets. The humans weren't fighting like a proper army. They weren't standing and fighting at all. Impossible, Cax muttered as another of his walking machines lost power, its legs tangled in simple metal cables that had shot up from beneath a manhole cover. They're fighting like insects. The aliens tried to adjust their tactics. They ordered their hovering tanks to rise higher, thinking they'd be safer above the streets. It was exactly what Stone had expected. Hidden devices in the buildings activated, creating magnetic fields that pulled at the tank's levitation systems. 3 of them crashed into each other over Times Square. Underground, Stone moved his forces through the tunnel networks. The aliens didn't know that every major city on Earth was connected below ground. While they struggled to fight enemies they couldn't see above, entire armies were moving beneath their feet. "Sir," called his aide, "General Cax is ordering his troops to fall back and regroup." Stone nodded. "Right on schedule. Send in the second wave." The aliens had gathered their forces in city parks and wide squares, thinking to use their superior numbers. Instead, they'd made themselves perfect targets. The ground beneath their feet suddenly wasn't solid anymore. Hidden panels opened, dropping their heavy machines into prepared pits. Others found themselves stuck in quick-setting foam that their sensors hadn't detected. In his command ship, General Cax watched in horror as his perfect invasion fell apart. "How?" he demanded. "How are they doing this? They're supposed to be primitive." The answer came in the form of more explosions, but these were different. They weren't meant to destroy, but to reveal. Thick smoke filled the streets, but this smoke had metal particles in it. The aliens' advanced sensors, designed to see through normal smoke, were completely blinded. And in that blindness, they finally saw the truth. The humans weren't primitive at all. Every street was a carefully prepared battlefield. Every building was a fortress. Every tunnel and sewer and subway line was part of a massive underground network that let Earth's armies move unseen. Stone watched as the alien forces began to break down. Their perfect formations were gone. Their advanced weapons seemed useless against an enemy that refused to fight the way they expected. And still, they hadn't seen the worst of it. "Operation Ant Hill, Phase 2, Stone ordered. "Let's show them what a real ground war looks like." All across the city, hidden speakers began broadcasting sounds at frequencies that the aliens found painful. Their powered armor, designed to stop physical attacks, did nothing against the sonic assault. For the first time, the invaders felt real fear. They had come expecting an easy victory over primitive humans who still fought on the ground. Instead, they found themselves trapped in a 3-dimensional battlefield where every brick, every stone, every handful of dirt had been turned into a weapon. And as the sun set on the first day of real fighting, General Cax realized his terrible mistake. They hadn't invaded Earth. They had walked into a trap centuries in the making. Night fell over the cities of Earth, but the darkness brought no relief to the alien forces. If anything, the humans became even more aggressive. Their attacks came from everywhere, above, below, and from all sides. The aliens' night vision technology, which had helped them conquer other worlds, was now working against them. Clever humans had planted thousands of small infrared emitters throughout the cities. These simple devices confused the aliens' thermal imaging, making it impossible to tell the difference between a hidden soldier and a decoy. Every shadow could hide a dozen enemies, and the aliens were learning to fear those shadows. In the command bunker, Stone watched the alien forces bunch together for protection. It was a natural response, but a fatal mistake in urban combat. "They still don't understand," he said to his aide. In city fighting, staying together just makes you a better target. He was proven right moments later. A group of alien soldiers had backed themselves into what they thought was a defensible position, a courtyard surrounded by tall buildings. They didn't realize that humans had fought in these exact streets for hundreds of years. Every window, every doorway, every angle had been studied and mapped. The attack came from 20 different positions at once. Simple mirrors redirected laser weapons back at their sources. Concentrated electromagnetic pulses, hidden in the walls, shut down the aliens' powered armor. Their advanced shields, designed to stop energy weapons, did nothing against the metal nets that dropped from above. General Cax watched from his command ship as another group of his soldiers went dark. His communication officers were panicking. "Sir, we've lost contact with 60% of our ground forces. The humans, they're everywhere." The alien leader slammed his hand on his command console. "Impossible. They're nothing but primitives. How are they doing this?" But deep inside, he was beginning to understand. The humans weren't primitive at all. They were masters of a type of warfare his people had forgotten existed. Underground, Stone moved his command center forward through the tunnel networks. The aliens still hadn't realized just how extensive these tunnels were. They connected every building, every street, allowing human forces to appear anywhere, anytime, then vanish just as quickly. "Reports from other cities," his aide said, trying to hide a smile. "Moscow reports their alien forces are completely surrounded. London has trapped 3 Walker units in the old underground tunnels. Beijing has taken down most of their hovering tanks." Stone nodded. The aliens were learning the hard way why humans had never abandoned ground combat. Space battles were about technology and power. But ground combat, especially in cities, was about knowledge, preparation, and adaptation. A new report flashed on his screens. The aliens were trying something desperate. They'd detected one of the tunnel networks and were sending troops below ground. Stone had been waiting for this moment. "Seal Section C," he ordered. "Let them in." The alien soldiers moved cautiously through the tunnels, their weapons ready, but they weren't ready for this kind of fighting. The tunnels turned their advanced sensors into useless junk. The tight spaces made their powered armor more hindrance than help, and they had no way to tell which tunnels were real and which were traps. They found out too late. Whole sections of tunnel collapsed, not to crush them, but to trap them. Water pipes burst, filling sections with water that their armor's electronics couldn't handle. Simple steel doors slammed shut, turning the tunnels into a maze they couldn't escape. Above ground, General Cax was receiving desperate calls for help from his trapped soldiers. But he couldn't help them. His aerial forces couldn't fire on the cities without hitting his own troops. His reinforcements were facing the same traps and ambushes that had decimated the first wave. "Sir," one of his officers reported, "the humans are broadcasting a message to our troops." On every alien communication channel, they heard Commander Stone's voice, translated into their language. "You came to our cities thinking we were primitive because we still fought on the ground. Now you're learning why we never stopped. The ground remembers. The cities remember. And we remember every lesson of every war ever fought in these streets." General Cax paced in his command ship, watching his invasion crumble. His soldiers were trapped in the human cities, fighting an enemy that seemed to be everywhere and nowhere. The mighty army of the Stellar Union, which had conquered a dozen worlds, was being defeated by what they had called primitives. "Sir," one of his officers called out, "we're detecting massive movement in all cities. The humans, they're coming out of hiding." On the screens, Cax watched in horror as the true size of Earth's armies was finally revealed. From underground bunkers, hidden buildings, and tunnel networks, human soldiers emerged in overwhelming numbers. They moved with perfect coordination, each group knowing exactly where to go and what to do. In the streets of New York, Commander Stone led the final phase of the attack. His forces moved like a flood through the city, using every lesson learned from centuries of urban warfare. The aliens tried to fight back, but their formations were broken, their communications confused, and their confidence shattered. "Look at their weapons," Stone told his soldiers as they advanced. "Beautiful, powerful, and completely wrong for this kind of fight." The aliens' energy rifles needed clear lines of sight. Their powered armor was too bulky for narrow alleys. Their walking machines couldn't handle the debris-filled streets. The humans, on the other hand, used weapons designed for close combat in cities. Simple electromagnetic pulses shut down alien shields. Guided rockets, launched from windows and rooftops, took down the remaining walker units. Even basic smoke grenades proved devastating, blocking the aliens' advanced targeting systems. Underground, more alien soldiers found themselves lost in the tunnel networks. Some surrendered when they realized they were hopelessly trapped. Others tried to fight, only to discover that humans had been practicing tunnel warfare for generations. Every corner, every intersection was a potential ambush site. General Cax received desperate calls for help from his ground forces. "We need orbital strikes," they begged. "Use the ship's weapons." But Cax couldn't. His own troops were too mixed with the humans now. Any orbital strike would kill as many aliens as humans. For the first time in his military career, he felt real fear. Not just of losing, but of something worse. Of being completely wrong about everything he thought he knew about warfare. Stone's forces pushed forward, taking back the city block by block. The aliens retreated, but there was nowhere safe to retreat to. The humans seemed to know every building, every street, every possible escape route. It was like the city itself was fighting against the invaders. In London, Moscow, Beijing, and every other major city, the same story played out. The aliens found themselves surrounded, cut off, and overwhelmed. Their superior technology meant nothing in the concrete canyons of Earth's urban battlefields. "Sir," Stone's aide reported, "the alien forces are surrendering in every city. General Cax's command ship is requesting communication." Stone looked at the city around him. The aliens had thought humans were primitive for still fighting on the ground. They hadn't understood that humans kept fighting on the ground because they had to, because Earth's cities were too valuable to destroy from orbit, because sometimes the only way to truly win was to fight face to face. On his command screen, General Cax's image appeared. The alien leader looked shaken, his previous confidence completely gone. "How?" he asked simply. "How did you defeat our technology?" Stone smiled. "Because war isn't just about technology. It's about knowledge, about experience, about understanding your battlefield. You forgot how to fight on the ground. We never did. Every war, every battle taught us something new. We learned. We adapted. We prepared." Around them, the sounds of battle were fading. The great invasion of Earth was ending, not with the victory the aliens had expected, but with their complete defeat. They had come expecting to find primitives who didn't know how to fight properly. Instead, they found masters of warfare who had turned their cities into fortresses and their streets into perfect battlegrounds. The alien surrender happened faster than anyone expected. Their remaining ground forces, cut off and surrounded in Earth's cities, laid down their weapons. Their mighty walking machines stood frozen like metal statues. Their hovering tanks settled to the ground, powerless and defeated. Stone walked through the streets of New York, observing the aftermath of the battle. Alien soldiers sat in groups, their powered armor disabled, looking lost and confused. Many of them had never experienced defeat before. Some had never even faced an enemy who could fight back effectively. In his command ship high above the city, General Cax prepared to meet with Earth's military leaders. His officers had tried to convince him to retreat, to regroup with the stellar Union fleet. But he knew better. The humans controlled the ground, and their hidden weapons could easily shoot down any ship that tried to leave. "Your transport is ready, sir," Stone's aide said, pointing to a simple ground vehicle. They would meet the alien leader in an old building, not in some high-tech facility. Stone wanted them to understand exactly who they were dealing with. The meeting room was in a historic building that had survived countless wars. Its walls were covered with photos and paintings of battles fought over hundreds of years. Stone watched as General Cax entered, the alien leader's eyes moving from image to image. "These are all battles fought here?" Cax asked, his translator making his voice sound hollow. "In this city alone," Stone replied. "Every city on Earth has similar histories. We've been fighting in these streets for centuries. Each battle taught us something new. Each war made us better at urban combat." More alien officers arrived, along with human military leaders from other cities. The aliens looked beaten, not just physically but mentally. Everything they thought they knew about warfare had been proven wrong. "Your weapons," one of the alien officers said. "They were so simple, but they worked perfectly against our advanced technology." "How?" Stone walked to a window, looking out at the city. "Because we designed them for this exact environment. Your sensors couldn't handle the concrete and steel. Your shields couldn't stop simple physical attacks. Your formations fell apart in narrow streets." The formal surrender was quick. The aliens had no choice. Their ground forces were captured, their ships were useless, and their pride was shattered. But Stone knew this was about more than just winning a war. "We need to understand," General Cax said as he signed the surrender documents. "How did we fail so completely?" "You forgot the most basic rule of warfare," Stone explained. "Technology doesn't win battles. Soldiers win battles. You thought fighting on the ground was primitive. We knew it was essential. You fought the way you wanted to fight. We fought the way we had to fight." Reports came in from around the world. The alien forces had surrendered everywhere. Their ships were withdrawing from orbit, but not before agreeing to a peace treaty that would forever change how the Stellar Union viewed Earth. In the streets below, human soldiers were already helping the alien troops understand their mistakes. Some aliens watched in amazement as humans demonstrated basic urban combat techniques. Others studied maps of the tunnel networks, finally understanding how thoroughly they had been outmaneuvered. "Your people will study this defeat," Stone told Cax. "They'll learn from it, like we learned from every battle we ever fought. Maybe next time, you'll remember that true warfare isn't about having the best technology. It's about knowing how to fight, when to fight, and where to fight." The alien leader nodded slowly. "We thought we were teaching you a lesson about power. Instead, you taught us a lesson about wisdom." As the sun set on the battlefield that Earth's cities had become, Stone knew that the galaxy would never look at humans the same way again. They had proven that sometimes the old ways were still the best ways, that experience could defeat technology, and that any species that forgot the basics of ground warfare did so at their own peril. The aliens had come to show humans how primitive they were. They left having learned that humanity's greatest strength wasn't in their weapons or their technology, but in their ability to learn from every battle, to adapt to any situation, and to turn their cities into the perfect battlegrounds. 1 month after the failed invasion, Earth had changed. Alien ships still hung in the sky, but now they were there as observers, not conquerors. The Stellar Union had sent its best military scholars to study what had happened, to learn how their mighty army had been defeated by what they once called primitives. Commander Stone stood in Times Square, watching alien officials taking notes as human soldiers demonstrated urban combat techniques. The same scenes were playing out in cities across the world. The aliens had come to learn, and humans proved to be willing teachers. "It's strange," his aide said, standing beside him. "A month ago, they'd wanted to destroy us. Now they're taking lessons from us." Stone nodded, remembering the last meeting with General Cax before the alien leader returned to report to the Stellar Union. The once proud general had asked question after question about human military history, about how they had maintained their ground combat skills, while other species abandoned them. In the streets, alien soldiers in training armor tried to move the way humans had shown them, staying close to walls, using cover, thinking in 3 dimensions. They were learning, but slowly. Centuries of relying only on technology had left them with much to relearn. "Commander," A young lieutenant called out, running up with a data tablet. The Stellar Union just sent their official response to our victory. You need to see this. The message was simple but powerful. The Stellar Union had changed its entire military doctrine. All member species would now be required to maintain ground combat capabilities. More importantly, Earth was being offered membership, not as a subordinate race, but as equals. As teachers. They're calling it the Earth Doctrine, the lieutenant said excitedly. Every spacefaring race will have to prove they can fight on the ground before they're allowed to join the Union. Stone smiled, remembering the aliens' first arrival, their contempt for Earth's primitive military. Now those same aliens were copying everything from Earth's military training programs to the design of their cities' defensive systems. In the underground command center, now a museum of the invasion, alien visitors stared in awe at the complex tunnel networks, the hidden weapon systems, the centuries of urban combat knowledge built into every street and building. Your people learned all this through fighting each other. An alien scholar asked Stone as they walked through the tunnels. We learned it because we had to, Stone replied. Every war taught us something new. Every battle showed us better ways to fight. We never stopped learning, never stopped preparing. Above ground, the city was returning to normal, but with changes. The aliens' defeated walking machines were being studied by human engineers, while alien scientists examined the simple but effective weapons that had brought down their advanced technology. A group of alien cadets passed by, led by human instructors. They were learning the basics of street fighting, building clearing, and underground warfare. These were the future leaders of the Stellar Union's military, and they were learning to fight the human way. The galaxy's changing because of what happened here, Stone's aide observed. No one will ever underestimate ground combat again. Stone thought about the future. The peace treaty had given Earth access to the stars, but it had given the galaxy something more valuable. A reminder that sometimes the old ways were the best ways. That no matter how advanced technology became, there would always be a place for soldiers who knew how to fight on the ground. In his office, Stone looked at the wall of battle photos, now including images from the alien invasion. Each picture told a story of adaptation, of humans using their environment, their experience, and their determination to defeat a technologically superior enemy. The final photo showed human and alien soldiers training together in the streets of New York. Below it was a quote from General Cax's report to the Stellar Union. We came to Earth thinking we would find primitives. Instead, we found masters of warfare who had never forgotten the most important lesson of all, that true combat power comes not from technology, but from the wisdom to know how to fight. As the sun set on Earth's cities, now more prepared for war than ever before, Stone knew that humanity had earned something rare, not just victory, but respect. They had taught the galaxy that sometimes keeping the old ways alive was the most advanced thing a species could do.